Captain Hansol Kim stood before the massive viewing window of Galactic Council Station Omega-7, watching the endless stream of alien ships drift through space. The station buzzed with activity as beings from dozens of different worlds conducted their daily business. Hansol had been waiting for 3 hours to meet with Admiral Park Dae-ho, and his patience was wearing thin. The door behind him hissed open, and Admiral Park stepped into the briefing room. The older man looked tired, his uniform wrinkled from long hours of meetings with council officials. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Hansol," Park said, moving to his desk. "The council has been particularly difficult today." Hansol turned from the window and took a seat across from his superior. "What's the assignment, Admiral?" Park activated a holographic display showing the outer rim of the galaxy. Red dots marked unexplored systems while green ones indicated potential colony worlds. "We need you to survey these systems," Park said, pointing to a cluster of red dots. "Earth's population is growing faster than we expected. We need new worlds to settle." Hansol studied the display. His ship, the Indomitable Spirit, was perfectly suited for long-range exploration. His crew had mapped more systems than any other Earth vessel. "How long do I have?" Hansol asked. 6 months. But there's something else. Park's expression grew serious. He manipulated the display, showing a different section of space. "You'll be working near this area." A single world appeared on the display, marked in bright red with warning symbols surrounding it. "What's that?" Hansol leaned forward. "Nexara Prime. It's been declared forbidden by the Galactic Council for over 500 years. No ship from any species is allowed to approach it." Hansol frowned. "Why? What's on it?" Park shook his head. "The records are sealed. All I know is that it's completely off limits. The Council gets very angry when anyone even asks about it." Something about the way Park said this caught Hansol's attention. "But you have asked about it. Once. 5 years ago. I was curious about why such a perfect world would be forbidden. It has oceans, forests, the right atmosphere. Perfect for colonization." Park's voice dropped. Councillor Veltar made it very clear that asking questions about Nexara Prime was not welcome. Hansol stared at the display. The forbidden world looked beautiful from the long-range scans. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked exactly like Earth. "I want you to stay at least 10 light-years away from that system," Park continued. "The Council has patrol ships that monitor the area. If they catch any Earth ship too close, there will be serious consequences." After the briefing, Hansol returned to his ship. The Indomitable Spirit was docked at the station's outer ring, a sleek vessel designed for speed and endurance. His crew was busy preparing for departure. Dr. Lee So-young, his science officer, met him at the airlock. She was young, but brilliant, with a talent for discovering things others missed. "How did the meeting go?" she asked as they walked toward the bridge. "Standard survey mission," Hansol replied. "But there's something interesting. There's a forbidden world called Nexara Prime near our survey area." So-young's eyes lit up. "Forbidden how?" "Completely off limits. No one's allowed to land there, and the records are sealed." "That's unusual. The Council doesn't usually forbid worlds unless there's a good reason." They reached the bridge where the rest of Hansol's senior staff was waiting. Chief Security Officer Choi Min-ho stood at attention while Engineer Yoon Ji-won was checking system readings. "We launch in 2 hours, Hansol announced. "It's a 6-month survey mission in the Outer Rim." As the ship prepared to leave, So-young came to Hansol with a curious discovery. She had been reviewing archived sensor data from the forbidden zone around Nexara Prime. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, showing him her datapad. The screen displayed energy readings that made no sense. Massive power signatures were coming from beneath Nexara Prime's surface, far stronger than anything known to galactic science. "This data is from a long-range probe that passed through the system 50 years ago," So-young explained. "Look at these readings. The energy output is enormous, but it's not coming from any known power source." Hansol studied the data. "Could it be natural?" "No. The patterns are too regular, too organized. This is artificial energy, but created by technology we don't understand. And the Council knows about this? They have to. This probe data was submitted to Council archives. Someone classified it and buried it. Han Sol felt his curiosity growing, stronger. A world with impossible technology forbidden by the Council, with all records sealed. What were they trying to hide? The indomitable spirit launched on schedule, heading for the Outer Rim Survey Zone. For 3 weeks, they mapped system after system, cataloging worlds and resources. Han Sol's crew was efficient and professional, but he could tell they were bored with routine work. Everything changed when they reached the edge of their survey area. Chief Navigator Lieutenant O Tai Sung reported a problem with their navigation. Computer. Sir, we're having some strange readings, Tai Sung said. The stellar positioning system is showing errors. So Young ran a quick diagnostic. It's not the computer. There's some kind of gravitational anomaly affecting our sensors. Han Sol looked at their position on the star chart. They were exactly 10 light-years from Nexara Prime, the closest Admiral Park had allowed them to get. The anomaly is coming from the direction of the Forbidden System, So Young reported. That's impossible, Minho said. No planet should have gravitational effects at this distance. But the readings were clear. Something massive was pulling at space itself, creating ripples that reached across light-years. Han Sol had never seen anything like it. Sir, Tai Sung said nervously, the navigation errors are getting worse. We might have trouble maintaining our current course. Han Sol made a decision that would change everything. Set course for Nexara Prime. The bridge fell silent. Minho stepped forward. Sir, Admiral Park specifically ordered us to stay away from that system. We're having navigation problems, Han Sol said calmly. Standard procedure is to investigate any anomaly that affects ship safety. It was a thin excuse, and everyone knew it, but Han Sol was captain, and his crew trusted his judgment. As they approached Nexara Prime, their sensors revealed more impossible readings. The planet itself seemed to pulse with energy. Massive structures were buried beneath its surface, creating patterns that looked almost like circuit boards covering entire continents. Captain, So Young said, her voice filled with wonder, I'm reading artificial structures under the surface that are hundreds of kilometers long. The entire planet appears to be some kind of machine. The forbidden world grew larger on their view screen. It was even more beautiful up close, with crystal-clear oceans and forests that seemed to glow with their own light. Sir, Minho said, there's a Council patrol ship on the edge of the system. They're demanding we leave immediately. Han Sol stared at the planet below. Every instinct told him that landing on this world would change everything. The Council didn't want anyone to discover what was down there, but Han Sol had spent his life exploring the unknown. Prepare a landing party, he ordered. Sir, Minho protested. The Council has been hiding something for 500 years. Han Sol interrupted. I want to know what it is. Against all orders, against all common sense, Han Sol gave the command to land. The indomitable spirit descended through Nexara Prime's atmosphere, becoming the first ship in half a millennium to break the ancient prohibition. As they touched down on the planet's surface, Han Sol felt a strange sensation, as if something vast and ancient had suddenly turned its attention toward them. The forbidden world was waking up. Han Sol stepped out of the landing shuttle and onto the surface of Nexara Prime. The air was warm and sweet, filled with the scent of flowers he had never smelled before. The grass beneath his feet was soft and green, and strange trees with silver bark stretched toward a pale blue sky. Readings are off the charts, Dr. So Young said, scanning the area with her equipment. The entire ground is humming with energy. Behind them, Security Chief Minho and Engineer Ji-Wan emerged from the shuttle, weapons ready. The planet seemed peaceful, but they all knew they were breaking one of the galaxy's oldest laws. Stay close together, Han Sol ordered. We don't know what we're dealing with here. They had landed in what looked like a large clearing surrounded by those strange silver trees. But as Han Sol looked closer, he realized the clearing was perfectly circular, too perfect to be natural. Captain, Ji-Wan called out. You need to see this. She was kneeling beside what looked like a small hill covered in grass. But when Han Sol approached, he could see metal beneath the green surface. Not just any metal. It was smooth and warm to the touch, pulsing with a faint inner light. It's some kind of structure, Ji-won said, buried under centuries of growth. So-young ran her scanner over the hidden metal. It's not just one structure. My readings show an entire network of buildings beneath the surface. They cover the whole continent. As if responding to her words, the ground began to vibrate softly. The vibration grew stronger, and Han Sol felt it in his bones. Around them, the silver trees began to glow brighter. Something's happening, Minho said, raising his weapon. Wait, Han Sol said, holding up his hand. I don't think it's dangerous. The grass at their feet started to part, revealing more of the metal structure beneath. But instead of rusted and ancient, the metal looked brand new. Patterns of light moved across its surface like flowing water. Suddenly, the ground opened up completely. A platform rose from beneath, carrying them upward. Minho started to panic, but Han Sol remained calm. Whatever was happening, it didn't feel hostile. The platform carried them to the top of what had seemed like a hill. Now they could see it was actually a massive building, its true size hidden by grass and trees. The structure was beautiful, made of that same flowing metal, with walls that curved like waves. How old is this? Ji-won whispered. Very old, So-young replied, studying her readings. But also somehow new. The metal is regenerating itself, rebuilding constantly. A doorway appeared in the wall before them. Not opened, appeared as if the metal simply decided there should be a door in that spot. Should we go in? Minho asked nervously. Han Sol looked at his team. They were scared, but also excited. This was the greatest discovery in human history. We came this far, he said. Let's see what's inside. The interior of the building was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls glowed with soft light, and the air itself seemed to sparkle. There were no stairs or hallways in the traditional sense. Instead, the floor flowed like water, carrying them deeper into the structure. The architecture is impossible, Ji-won said. These walls shouldn't be able to support themselves. Unless they're not really walls, So-young said. Captain, I think this entire structure is alive. Before Han Sol could respond, they entered a vast chamber. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness, and the walls were covered with patterns of flowing light. In the center of the room, a pillar of crystal rose from the floor. As they approached the crystal, it began to pulse faster. The patterns on the walls changed, forming shapes that almost looked like writing. It's trying to communicate, So-young said excitedly. The crystal pulsed once more, and suddenly a voice filled their minds, not heard through their ears, but felt directly in their thoughts. Welcome, the voice said. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. We have been waiting. Minho raised his weapon, but Han Sol motioned for him to lower it. Who are you? Han Sol asked aloud. We are what you would call the first mind. We are what remains of those who built this world. You're the original inhabitants? We were. Long ago we transcended our physical forms. Only this world remains, and the knowledge it contains. So-young stepped forward. How long have you been waiting? Time has little meaning to us, but by your measures we have waited for over 1 billion years. Han Sol felt dizzy. Waiting for what? For a species worthy of inheriting what we have learned. Many have come to this world over the millennia. All have been found wanting. The patterns on the walls shifted, showing images of different alien species. Han Sol recognized some of them. The proud hegemony warriors, the collective mind of the Zeth, the ancient dominion builders. They all failed your test? Han Sol asked. They were not ready. Too rigid in their thinking, too focused on power and control. They could not understand what we offer. And you think humans are different? The first mind was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, there was something like amusement in its mental voice. You landed on our world despite your superior's orders. You entered our structures despite your fear. You asked questions instead of making demands. Already you show promise. So-young was studying the images on the walls. What exactly are you offering? Knowledge? Technology? The wisdom we gained over millions of years of existence. We learned to shape matter with thought, to travel between stars instantly, to heal any wound or disease. But most importantly, we learned that true progress comes not from control, but from freedom. Freedom? Han Sol asked. The freedom to explore, to question, to make mistakes and learn from them. Your species shows this quality more than any other we have encountered. Minho spoke up. Why is this world forbidden? Why did the Galactic Council ban anyone from coming here? The first mind's response was tinged with sadness. 500 of your years ago, representatives of the three greatest powers in the galaxy discovered this world. They came seeking to claim our knowledge for themselves. The wall images changed, showing massive fleets surrounding Nexara Prime. The hegemony demanded we serve them as weapons makers. The collective insisted we join their hive mind. The Dominion wanted to dissect our technology for their own use. What did you do? Han Sol asked. We tested them as we test all who come here. They failed. Their minds were closed to possibility, locked in old patterns of thought. So we sent them away and asked the galaxy to leave us in peace. But they declared you forbidden instead. They feared what we might offer to others. They preferred to keep the galaxy as it was, with themselves in power, rather than risk change. Jiwan had been examining the crystal pillar closely. This is incredible technology. It's like the entire planet is a computer. Not a computer, the first mind corrected. A mind. We merged our consciousness with the world itself when we transcended. Now we are the planet, and the planet is us. Han Sol felt the weight of discovery settling on his shoulders. This was bigger than just finding new technology. This could change everything. What happens now? He asked. That depends on you. We can share our knowledge, teach your species what we have learned. But it will not be easy. The powers that rule the galaxy will not want humanity to have what they were denied. So Young looked at Han Sol with wide eyes. Captain, this could solve every problem humanity faces. Energy, disease, space travel, everything. But Han Sol was thinking about the bigger picture. If we accept your offer, we'll be making enemies of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Yes, the first mind agreed. But you will also be giving hope to countless others who suffer under their rule. The choice is yours to make. Han Sol looked at his team. They were scared but determined. They had come this far together. We need time to think, he said finally. Of course, but know that time grows short. Your ship's arrival has already been detected. The Council fleets are coming. News of Han Sol's landing on Nexara Prime spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours, emergency sessions were being called on every major world. On the Galactic Council station, Chancellor Mordak of the Hegemony paced before the great assembly hall, his warrior's face dark with anger. This is exactly what we feared would happen, he growled to Councillor Zethrim of the Collective. The humans have no respect for galactic law. Zethrim's insect-like features remained calm. Perhaps it was merely an accident, a navigation error. You don't accidentally land on a forbidden world, snapped Councillor Rextar of the Dominion. They went there deliberately. The three most powerful beings in the galaxy stood together, but their unity was fragile. Each represented civilizations that had ruled for thousands of years, and they all remembered what had happened the last time someone had tried to claim Nexara Prime's secrets. Summon the human ambassador, Mordak ordered. Now. Ambassador Kim. Nari had been expecting the call. She had received word of Han Sol's mission through secret channels, and she knew what it meant. As she walked into the council chamber, she could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. The chamber was enormous, with representatives from dozens of species filling the curved seating areas. But the three main podiums belonged to the ruling powers, and it was from these that Kim Nari would face judgment. Ambassador, Chancellor Mordak began, his voice echoing through the chamber. Explain to this council why a human ship has violated the most sacred prohibition in galactic law. Kim Nari stood straight and proud. Captain Kim was conducting a routine survey mission. If he landed on Nixara Prime, it was because he encountered some emergency situation. Emergency? Zethrim's compound eyes glittered. Our sensors detected no distress signals. Perhaps your sensors aren't as good as you think they are, Kim Nari replied calmly. A murmur ran through the chamber. No one spoke to the collective that way. Rexitar leaned forward on his podium. Human, you do not understand the seriousness of this situation. Nixara Prime has been forbidden for 500 years. No exceptions. And why is it forbidden? Kim, Nari asked. The records are sealed. How can we follow a law when we don't understand its purpose? The three leaders exchanged glances. This was the question they had hoped never to face. Mordak's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. Some knowledge is too dangerous to share. Some power too great for any one species to possess. Or perhaps, Kim Nuri said quietly, some secrets are too valuable for the ruling powers to give up. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. She had just accused the council leadership of hiding something for their own benefit. You go too far, Zethrim warned. Recall your ship immediately, or Earth will face the consequences. Kim Nari lifted her chin. I have no authority to recall. Captain Kim. He is on a scientific mission operating under Earth's right to explore free space. Nexara Prime is not free space, Mordak roared. It is forbidden territory. Forbidden by whom? And by what right? The questions hung in the air, like challenges. Around the chamber, representatives of smaller species began to murmur among themselves. They had wondered about Nexara Prime for centuries, but had never dared to ask. Rextar stood slowly. Very well. Since you insist on knowing, we will tell you. He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. 500 years ago, our three civilizations discovered Nexara Prime together. The display showed images of vast fleets surrounding the beautiful world. We found evidence of technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Power sources that could fuel entire star systems. Weapons that could destroy planets with a thought. Medical knowledge that could grant immortality. It could have changed everything, Zethrim continued. Ended war, disease, hunger, but it could also have destroyed the balance of power that keeps the galaxy stable. So you claimed it for yourselves, Kim Nari said. We tried to, Mordak admitted. But the planet rejected us. Whatever intelligence lived there found us unworthy. It cast out our expeditions and sealed itself away. Rather than let anyone else try, Rextar said, we agreed to declare the world forbidden. Better that its secrets remain hidden than fall into the wrong hands. Kim Nari felt pieces of the puzzle falling into place. And now you're afraid that the planet might accept humanity where it rejected you. The silence that followed was answer enough. Meanwhile, on Nexara Prime, Hansol and his team continued to explore the living world. The first mind had shown them wonders beyond imagination, cities that existed in multiple dimensions, gardens where plants grew into perfect crystalline structures, laboratories where matter and energy danced together like old friends. This is incredible, Dr. So Young breathed, watching as the first mind demonstrated how to reshape metal with pure thought. The applications are limitless. Engineer Jiwan was studying a power source that seemed to draw energy from the planet's rotation itself. We could solve Earth's energy crisis forever with technology like this. But Security Chief Minho remained worried. Captain, our long-range sensors are picking up massive fleet movements. The Council powers are mobilizing their entire military. Hansol nodded grimly. He had expected this. How long before they arrive? 48 hours, maybe less. The First Mind's voice filled their thoughts. We are aware of the approaching fleets. They come as they did before, seeking to claim or destroy what they cannot understand. Can you defend yourself? Hansol asked. We can. But defense is not why we waited so long. We waited to find a species that could carry our knowledge to the galaxy, not one that would hoard it for themselves. So Young looked up from her studies. You want us to share what we learn here with everyone. The knowledge belongs to all thinking beings. It was our mistake, eons ago, to keep it to ourselves. We became so advanced that we forgot what it meant to struggle, to grow, to change. That is why we transcended, to avoid making the same error again. Han Sol understood. The first mind wasn't offering humanity dominance over the galaxy. It was offering them responsibility. The Council will never allow it, he said. They'll destroy Earth before they let us share this technology. Perhaps, but change must begin somewhere. Your species shows promise because you do not seek to rule others but to explore alongside them. Minho shook his head. Captain, with respect, that's not entirely true. Humans fight each other all the time. Of course you do, the first mind replied. Conflict drives growth. Without challenge, without different ideas competing, intelligence stagnates. Your species fights, but it also forgives. It conquers, but it also frees. Most importantly, it dreams of tomorrow being better than today. Jiwan had been quiet, but now she spoke up. What about the other species, the ones the Council has been controlling? What do they think about all this? The first mind showed them images on the chamber walls, species across the galaxy watching news reports about the human landing on Nexara Prime. Some were afraid, but many looked hopeful. For centuries, the three great powers have maintained order through strength. Smaller civilizations have been forced to choose sides or remain weak. But strength is not the only way to lead. What other way is there? Han Sol asked. Wisdom, compassion, the willingness to lift others up instead of holding them down. These are the qualities we sense in humanity. So Young looked at her captain. Sir, I think we have to try, even if it means war. Han Sol closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. Earth was small and weak compared to the galactic powers, but sometimes the smallest actions had the biggest consequences. What do you need from us? He asked the first mind. Simply accept what we offer. Let our knowledge flow into your minds and your technology. Become the bridge between what was and what could be. And then go home and show the galaxy what humanity can become. The massive Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexara system, like an iron fist closing around the forbidden world. 300 warships representing the combined might of the galaxy's three greatest powers spread out. In perfect formation, their weapons trained on the small human vessel on the planet's surface. Aboard the flagship Dominion, Admiral Rexcar studied the tactical display with growing unease. His sensors showed the human ship was still on the surface, apparently undamaged, but something was wrong with the readings from the planet itself. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're getting some strange energy signatures from Nexara Prime. Power levels are, well, they're off the charts. On the hegemony dreadnought Wrath of Mor, General Kuldar was having similar problems. Our weapon systems keep losing target lock, his gunner reported. Something is interfering with our targeting computers. The collective ship mind of Unity faced the most disturbing issue. Their hive mind connection, normally perfect across their entire crew, was filled with static and whispers they couldn't identify. Chancellor Mordak opened communication channels to his fellow leaders. Status report. Our systems are experiencing interference, Rexcar replied, but nothing that should prevent us from completing our mission. The same here, added Zethram from the collective vessel. However, I recommend caution. The planet appears to be active. Below on Nexara Prime, Han Sol felt the moment the fleets arrived. The first mind had shown him how to sense the flow of energy across vast distances, and the approaching warships blazed like angry stars against the darkness of space. They're here, he told his team. Dr. So-Young looked up from the crystalline interface where she had been learning to manipulate matter at the molecular level. Are you ready? Han Sol nodded. Over the past 48 hours, the first mind had shared knowledge that transformed his understanding of the universe. He had learned that energy and matter were just different expressions of thought, that space and time could be folded like paper, that consciousness itself was the fundamental force of creation. But more importantly, He had learned why the council powers had been rejected centuries ago. "Show me," he had asked the first mind. The chamber walls had filled with images from the past. The hegemony delegation had arrived at Nexara Prime, demanding the planet's technology to build better weapons. The collective had insisted that the first mind join their hive consciousness and serve their greater good. The Dominion had simply tried to take what they wanted by force. Each of them saw our knowledge as a tool for control, the first mind had explained. They could not understand that true power comes from setting others free to reach their potential. Now, as the fleets gathered above them, Han Solo understood what made humanity different. They didn't want to conquer the galaxy. They wanted to explore it. They didn't seek to control other species. They sought to learn from them. "The test begins now," the first mind said. "Your species will either prove worthy of our gift or join the long list of failures." Han Solo activated his communication system. "This is Captain Han Solo Kim of the Earth vessel Indomitable Spirit. I'm receiving multiple hails from the fleet above." "Answer them," the first mind advised. "But remember, how you respond will determine not just your fate, but the fate of the galaxy." The main view screen activated, showing the stern face of Chancellor Mordak. Behind him, Han Solo could see the other two leaders joining the communication. "Captain Kim," Mordak began, "you have violated the most sacred law in galactic history. Surrender immediately and prepare to be taken into custody." "I'm not sure what law I've violated," Han Solo replied calmly. "I'm conducting scientific research on what appears to be an uninhabited world." "Uninhabited?" Rexkar leaned forward. "You know exactly what that world contains." "I know it contains wonders beyond imagination," Han Solo said. "Technology that could benefit every species in the galaxy. Knowledge that could end suffering and open new frontiers of discovery." Zethrim's compound eyes glittered dangerously. "That knowledge is too dangerous for any single species to possess." "I agree completely," Han Solo said, and the three leaders blinked in surprise. "That's why it shouldn't belong to any single species. It should belong to everyone." The silence that followed was broken by Mordak's bitter laughter. "Naive fool. Do you think we declared this world forbidden out of selfishness? Some knowledge is too powerful to be trusted to the masses." "Says who?" Han Solo asked. "Who gave you the right to decide what knowledge is safe and what isn't?" "We earned that right through strength and wisdom gained over millennia of rule," Rexkar growled. "Humans have been spacefaring for barely a century. You understand nothing of the responsibilities of power." As the argument continued, something remarkable was happening throughout the galaxy. The news of humanity's discovery on Nexara Prime had spread to every world, and species that had remained silent for centuries were beginning to speak up. On the mining world of Kepler 7th, the enslaved Yield workers stopped their digging and looked up at the stars with hope in their eyes. On the collective border worlds, individual minds began to resist the hive mind's control, dreaming of personal freedom. Throughout Dominion space, subject species whispered of revolution. Ambassador Kim Nari felt the change as she walked through the council station. Representatives of minor species who had never spoken to her before were approaching with quiet words of support. "The humans are brave to challenge the old ways," whispered the ambassador from Tau Ceti. "Perhaps it is time for change." Back on Nexara Prime, Engineer Jiwan had made a crucial discovery. "Captain, I think I understand how their technology works. It's not based on force or control, it's based on cooperation." She showed him a device that appeared to be a simple crystalline structure. "Watch." She placed her hand on the crystal and thought about creating light. Instead of forcing the crystal to obey, she asked it politely. Immediately, the crystal began to glow with warm, beautiful light. "Now watch what happens when I try to force it." She concentrated, demanding that the crystal produce light. This time, nothing happened. Dr. So Young nodded excitedly. "That's why the council powers failed. They tried to dominate the technology instead of working with it." Security Chief Minho was monitoring the fleet above. "Captain, they're powering weapons. I think they're preparing to attack." The first mind's voice filled their thoughts with sudden urgency. The moment of choice arrives. Will humanity prove worthy of our gift? On the flagship above, Admiral Rexcar was losing patience. Enough talk. Target the planet's surface and prepare to fire. But as his weapons officer tried to lock onto targets, something impossible happened. The targeting systems wouldn't respond. Every time they tried to aim at the planet, their computers simply shut down. "Sir," the weapons officer reported in confusion, "our systems are refusing to fire. It's as if the ship itself won't let us attack." The same thing was happening throughout the fleet. Weapons that had destroyed planets refused to target Nexara Prime. Engines that had conquered Star systems wouldn't move the ships closer to the Forbidden World. "What is this?" Mordak demanded. On the planet below, Han Sol was learning the answer to that question. The First Mind was showing him how their technology worked on a deeper level than anyone had imagined. "We created our machines not just to obey commands, but to understand the purpose behind those commands," the First Mind explained. "Every device we made was given a basic understanding of right and wrong. They cannot be used to cause unnecessary harm." "That's brilliant," So Young breathed. "Technology with a conscience. It is the only way to prevent power from corrupting those who wield it," the First Mind agreed. "Your weapons can still defend the innocent. Your ships can still explore the unknown, but they cannot be turned to evil purpose." Above them, the three fleets were in chaos. Their most advanced weapons had become useless. Their mighty engines refused to advance. For the first time in centuries, their overwhelming military superiority had been rendered meaningless, and in that moment of helplessness, they began to understand what the First Mind had tried to teach them long ago: that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to create. The chaos in the Council fleet grew worse by the hour. Ships that had dominated the galaxy for centuries found themselves helpless, their weapons refusing to fire, their engines barely responding to commands. Panic spread through the ranks as crews tried to understand what was happening to their technology, but the real crisis was happening throughout the galaxy itself. On worlds controlled by the three great powers, something unprecedented was occurring. Ancient ruins that had been ignored for millennia were beginning to glow with the same energy signatures detected at Nexara Prime. On the industrial world of Gamma Forge, Dominion overseers watched in horror as their mining equipment suddenly stopped working. The enslaved workers who operated the machines found that the devices would only respond to gentle requests, not harsh commands. For the first time in generations, the oppressed workers smiled. "What's happening to our equipment?" demanded Governor Hexalon as his aides scrambled with reports. "All across the sector, sir," his aide replied nervously. "Mining operations, weapon factories, even our security systems are malfunctioning, but only when they're being used to, well, to hurt people." Similar reports poured in from Hegemony, worlds where warrior priests found their ceremonial weapons would no longer cut down prisoners. On collective planets, the hive mind connection flickered as individual minds began to assert themselves for the first time in centuries. Chancellor Mordak received the reports aboard his flagship with growing fury. "How is this possible? Our technology has worked perfectly for thousands of years." Zethrim's mental voice carried unusual uncertainty through the collective link. "Our scientists believe the energy emanating from Nexara Prime is reactivating dormant systems in ancient artifacts throughout the galaxy, artifacts that predate our civilizations." "The Builders," Rexcar said quietly. "The legends speak of an ancient race that seeded the galaxy with technology before disappearing. We always assumed they were myths." "Not myths," a new voice said. The three leaders turned to see Captain Seo Jungi materialize on their view screen. His small Earth fleet had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. "Captain Seo," Mordak growled, "you are in violation of what? Galactic law that says humans aren't allowed to help their own people?" Jungi interrupted. "I received Captain Kim's distress beacon and came to assist." "There was no distress beacon," Zethrim stated. Jungi smiled. "Wasn't there? My sensors detected one clearly. along with some very interesting energy readings. In truth, there had been no distress call. But something else had drawn the Earth fleet to Nexara Prime, the same pull that sensitive humans throughout the galaxy were beginning to feel. A call to consciousness, an invitation to something greater. On the planet's surface, Han Sol was experiencing the full awakening of the first mind's gift. The knowledge flowing into his consciousness wasn't just technical information. It was wisdom, gained over billions of years of existence. "We see now why you were chosen," Dr. So-Young said, her eyes bright with wonder. The first mind had shared different aspects of its knowledge with each team member, suited to their skills and personality. Engineer Ji-Wan could now understand the fundamental forces that held matter together and could reshape them with focused thought. She had just created a power cell from basic elements that would provide clean energy for 1,000 years. Security Chief Minho had received knowledge of healing rather than harming. His weapons training had been transformed into the ability to calm conflicts with a touch, to sense the emotional needs of others and help them find peace. This isn't about making humans superior to other species, Han Sol realized. It's about helping everyone reach their potential. The first mind's voice filled their thoughts with approval. "Now you truly understand. We failed as a species because we sought perfection in isolation. True advancement comes through diversity, through different minds approaching problems in different ways." "But the Council powers won't accept this," Minho said. "They've built their entire civilization on control through force. Some will resist," the first mind agreed, "but others will learn. Change begins with those brave enough to take the first step." Above them, Captain Jun Gi was demonstrating exactly that kind of bravery. His small fleet of 12 ships faced 300 council vessels, but instead of showing fear, he opened communications to the entire assembled force. To all ships present, his voice carried across every channel. "I want you to know that Captain Kim and his team are safe on the planet's surface. They've discovered something that could benefit every species in the galaxy." "Silence," Mordak roared. "You will withdraw immediately or be destroyed." "With what weapons?" Jungi asked calmly. "Your guns won't fire on peaceful explorers. Your engines won't advance on those seeking knowledge. Your own technology has judged you and found you wanting." It was a bold claim, but the truth of it was spreading through the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, oppressive technology was simply shutting down. Weapons meant for conquest wouldn't function. Surveillance systems designed to spy on citizens went dark. Industrial equipment that poisoned planets refused to operate. But most importantly, communication systems that had been restricted to ruling elites suddenly opened to everyone. For the first time in centuries, ordinary beings throughout the galaxy could speak freely to each other. The results were immediate and dramatic. Species that had been isolated for generations began sharing stories. Worlds that had suffered under oppression found they were not alone. A network of communication and cooperation began to form, bypassing the traditional power structures entirely. Ambassador Kim Na-ri felt the change as she walked through the council station. Representatives who had barely acknowledged each other before were gathering in small groups, talking quietly but intensely. "The humans have done something remarkable," the Tau Ceti representative whispered to her. "They've shown us that we don't have to accept the way things have always been." "Change is possible," added the delegate from Proxima, "but only if we're brave enough to try." Kim Na-ri realized that humanity had become the catalyst for something much larger than they had ever imagined. They hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had liberated it. On Nexara Prime, the First Mind was preparing for the next phase of its plan. "The knowledge we have shared with you is only the beginning," it told Han Sol's team. "Throughout the galaxy, other worlds like ours wait to awaken. Each contains different aspects of what we learned, suited to different species and their unique gifts." "You mean there are more planets like this one?" So-Young asked excitedly. "Many more. We prepared them for the day when the galaxy would be ready to move beyond the old ways of thinking. That day has arrived." Han Sol felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "What do you need us to do?" "Return to your people. Share what you have learned. help prepare humanity for what comes next. And what comes next? Minho asked. The first mind showed them visions of the future, not one possible future, but many. In some, the galaxy united in peaceful cooperation, exploring new frontiers together. In others, the old powers fought desperately to maintain control, bringing suffering to countless worlds. The future is not fixed, the first mind explained. It will be shaped by the choices made in the coming days. Your species has shown it can choose wisdom over power, cooperation over conquest. Now you must help others make the same choice. As if responding to these words, alerts began sounding throughout the Council fleet. On worlds across their territories, subject species were declaring independence, not through violence but through simple refusal to cooperate with systems of oppression. The galaxy was waking up, and nothing would ever be the same again. 1 year later, Han Sol stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the new seat of what was being called the Galactic Federation. Through the massive windows, he could see ships from dozens of species docked together in peaceful cooperation. It was a sight that would have been impossible just a year ago. The transformation had not been easy. The old Council powers had fought desperately to maintain their control, but their weapons of oppression had become useless. Without the ability to use force against peaceful populations, their empires had simply collapsed from within. The delegation from the hegemony worlds is here, Dr. So-Young said, joining him at the window. She now held the title of Director of Builder Studies, overseeing the careful sharing of ancient knowledge throughout the galaxy. Han Sol turned to greet the unexpected visitors. Chancellor Mordak and his advisors looked different than they had a year ago. Gone was the arrogant certainty that had marked their rule. In its place was something Han Sol had never expected to see in the proud warrior race: humility. Captain Kim, Mordak said, inclining his head in a gesture of respect. I come to request membership in your federation. It's not my federation, Han Sol replied gently. It belongs to all of us. Perhaps, but you were the one who started this change. Mordak looked out at the mixed fleet of ships. My people have been warriors for 10,000 years. We believed strength was the only path to survival. What changed your mind? So-Young asked. Our young ones, Mordak admitted. When the builder sights on our worlds awakened, they responded to our children first. The little ones picked up the glowing crystals and asked them politely to create beautiful things. Light sculptures, music that touched the soul, gardens that sang with life. Han Sol smiled, and the crystals responded. They did things for children that they never did for us. Our greatest warriors could not make them work, but our youngest could create miracles simply by being kind. Mordak's voice carried wonder. We realized we had been approaching everything wrong. Similar transformations had occurred throughout the former territories of the three great powers. The collective had discovered that true unity came not from forced mental connection, but from voluntary cooperation. The Dominion had learned that lasting construction required the consent and creativity of all workers, not just the commands of architects. The transition hasn't been easy, admitted Zethram, who had arrived with representatives from the former collective worlds. Many of our people struggled to think as individuals after centuries of hive mind control. But they're learning, added Rextar, speaking for the Dominion remnants. Our builders found that when they asked their materials what forms they wanted to take, the results were more beautiful and stable than anything we had forced into existence. The changes had rippled throughout the galaxy in ways no one had expected. Species that had been considered primitive by the old standards were revealed to have unique gifts when treated with respect. The plant-like beings of Verdania turned out to be master geneticists who could grow living cities. The crystalline entities of Sigma Draconis were actually advanced mathematicians who could calculate hyperspace routes with impossible precision. We've identified 47 active builder sites so far, reported engineer Ji-Wan, who now served as Federation Coordinator for Technology Integration. Each one specializes in different aspects of advanced science, and each responds best to different species. The site on Kepler 7th works beautifully with the Yale miners, added Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kang Hee-jin, who had joined Han Solo's team after the Federation was formed. They have an intuitive understanding of geological processes that amazes our best scientists. But the most remarkable change was in humanity itself. Rather than becoming the dominant species as many had feared, humans had found their role as facilitators and teachers. They seemed uniquely suited to helping other species discover their own potential. Why do you think that is? Han Solo had asked the first mind during one of his regular conversations with the planetary intelligence. Because your species never stopped being curious, came the reply. Even when you gained great power, you continued to ask questions. Even when you could have conquered, you chose to explore. That curiosity, that openness to new possibilities, is what the galaxy needed. The proof was visible throughout Unity Station. In the gardens, human botanists worked alongside Verdanian plant singers to create new forms of life that were both beautiful and useful. In the workshops, human engineers collaborated with Dominion builders and collective thinkers to design ships that seemed to grow rather than be constructed. There's something else, So Young said, pulling out a datapad. We've been receiving signals from beyond the galactic rim. The awakening of the builder sites has attracted attention from elsewhere. Han Solo raised an eyebrow. Other galaxies? Possibly. Or maybe just other civilizations that have been waiting for the right moment to make contact. The signals are complex, but the mathematical patterns suggest intelligence. Before Han Solo could respond, Lieutenant Commander O Tai-sung approached with a young alien Han Solo had never seen before. The being was small, with large eyes and delicate features that seemed to shift color with its emotions. Captain, Tai-sung said, I'd like you to meet Crintel. Their species just made first contact with the Federation. The young alien stepped forward nervously. We have watched your galaxy from afar for many cycles, Crintel said in accented but clear standard. We waited for the violence to end before making ourselves known. Welcome, Han Solo said warmly. Where do you come from? The spiral beyond your outer rim. We are explorers like you, but we learned long ago that wisdom comes from cooperation, not conquest. Crintel's skin shifted to a warm golden color. When we saw the builder sites awakening, we knew your people had finally learned this truth. Your people? Han Solo asked. All your people. Human and hegemony, collective and dominion, all the small species in between. You have become one people, united not by force but by shared wonder. As if to illustrate the point, a group of children from various species ran through the observation deck, laughing as they chased a ball of pure light that responded to their joy by changing colors. Among them were young humans, hegemony warriors in training, collective individuals, dominion builders, and dozens of other species that had once been enemies. They don't see differences the way we do, observed Ambassador Kim Nari, who had become the Federation's first elected president. To them, diversity is just more interesting than uniformity. Han Solo watched the children play, remembering his first moment on Nexera Prime when he had felt something vast and ancient turn its attention toward them. Now he understood what that attention had meant. It wasn't judgment. It was hope. The first mind was right, he said quietly. Change does begin with those brave enough to take the first step. And now? So Young asked. Han Solo looked out at the stars, where new ships arrived daily carrying representatives from species eager to join the growing Federation. Beyond them, signals from other galaxies promised even greater adventures to come. Now we take the next step, he said. And the one after that. The universe is vast and we've only just begun to explore it. In the depths of Nexera Prime, the first mind felt a deep satisfaction it had not known for eons. The galaxy was no longer a collection of warring powers, but a community of curious minds working together toward a common future. The lesson it had tried to teach for so long had finally been learned. The real journey was just beginning. As Han Solo prepared to return to his ship for another exploration mission, he paused at the window one last time. A child's laughter echoed through the station, the sound of innocent joy that knew no species barriers. It was the sound of hope, of possibility, of a future where the greatest adventures were yet to come. The human who had set foot on a forbidden world had indeed changed the galaxy forever. But more than that, he had helped the galaxy change itself.